All right, here we go. Another loaded show coming your way on today's Philadelphia Eagles. Now, my name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And there are three topics that I want to get to here. According to an NFL agent, he thinks that Dallas Goedert is not going to be on the Eagles in 2025, so could the Eagles cut him or trade him away? According to a report, Eagles right guard Mekhi Becton, who made that seamless transition to right guard from offensive tackle, wants to stay with Philadelphia, probably because he had the best year of his career. He's playing on a great offensive line unit, and he's coached by the best offensive line coach in the NFL, in Jeff Stoutland. And a lot of people have reached out to me, Eagles fans, asking me, Chase, what's Darius Slade doing? What's going on? He actually DM'd me. And I think there's some confusion out there as far as the point that he was trying to make as far as Jalen Hurts goes. What's going on with him and CJ Gardner-Johnson? I'm not sure about that, but we'll talk about that as well. We are just days away, by the way, from NFL free agency. Howie Roseman's already been busy. He signed Saquon Barkley to a record-breaking contract. A day later, he signed Zach Bond to a contract extension. And you know that Howie's always cooking something up, so if you're excited to see what the Eagles do in free agency, led by Howie. Howie do that. I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. As far as Dallas Goedert goes, he's been one of the best tight ends in Eagles franchise history. Since he came into the league out of college, he's been one of the top all-around tight ends in the National Football League. Great player at South Dakota State, great player with Philadelphia. But his future is a little bit murky with the Eagles. He turned 30 years old in January. He is second all-time in franchise history in postseason receiving yards behind Devontae Smith, who overtook him with that big performance in the Super Bowl. And Goedert is currently under contract for the 2025 season. But here's the issue. No more guaranteed money left on his deal, and so he's set to be a free agent with no guaranteed money left after the 2025 season during the 2026 offseason. And a lot of people are wondering, is Goedert and his camp, are they going to look for financial security? Do they want a long-term contract? You also have to wonder from a team standpoint, Howie Roseman, coaching staff, Jeffrey Lurie, the entire organization, do they want to make a commitment to a player who's getting older, who's been highly productive, but has really struggled to stay healthy? It's not like he suffered catastrophic injuries, severe injuries that are season enders, knock on wood, but nicks and knacks here and there, which has caused him to miss a lot of time. And there's a lot of talk out there that Goedert won't be returning to Philadelphia. Some of this is being reported on by the likes of Jeff McLean. Some of this is being theorized by people like myself who cover the Eagles on a daily basis. But what Jeff McLean had to say on his recent podcast on the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is called Uncovering the Birds, it's a really well-done podcast from a production standpoint. Here's what McLean had to say. One of those tips came from an agent I had known for years who I ran into at the JW Marriott in Indianapolis. That's the same hotel, by the way, where Ian Rappaport and Jordan Schultz got into that beef at the Starbucks at JW Marriott. Well-known fact, or little-known fact. He was convinced that the Eagles would not be bringing back tight end Dallas Goedert and offered information that suggested as such. Goedert has been one of the best at his position for the last several years. Staying healthy has been an issue. He's under contract for 2025, no more guaranteed money left on that deal, and he just turned 30. But he was also instrumental in the Eagles Super Bowl run. Great in the postseason, catching 17 passes for 215 yards and a touchdown. But I could see things coming to a head because Goedert could have more value on the open market than the Eagles might be willing to pay considering their cap situation. So I sent a few text messages to sources, one who verified Goedert by no means is a slam dunk to return to Philly for his 8th season. That wouldn't come as a surprise, but the Eagles don't exactly have an obvious starting tight end to replace Goedert with, as they did 3 years ago when they traded Zach Ertz with Goedert entering his prime. All good points made by Dallas Goedert. You can see why some NFL sources have some of the thoughts that they do. But something just happened today on this Thursday, March 6th, which is very interesting. The Jacksonville Jaguars released tight end Evan Ingram. They tried to trade him. They could not find a trade partner for Ingram, who's also a really good tight end, who they signed to a big deal a couple of years ago in free agency. Have the Eagles tried to trade Dallas Goedert? And if so, are they not getting any solid offers back for Goedert? And could that lead to his value being impacted via a trade and or in free agency? Something to think about here. I like Grant Calcaterra. I think he has some ability. I'm not sure he's ready to be a number one tight end. What's interesting, too, though, is that the Eagles did meet with several tight ends formerly at the NFL Combine. That includes Thomas Fadone out of Nebraska, Terrence Ferguson, tight end out of Oregon, Rivaldo Fairweather out of Auburn, Jake Briningstool out of Clemson, Mason Taylor, the son of Jason Taylor, the Dolphins defensive end, Hall of Famer. Mason played his college football at LSU, Gunnar Helm, Texas, and then Harold Fannin is a name to watch because he went to Bowling Green State University, had more than 100 catches last year, really good athlete, and the Eagles just hired his head coach to be their quarterbacks coach. Now, with Goedert, cutting him or trading him before June 1 causes the Eagles to lose $9.5 million in cap space. Designating him as a post-June 1 cut more financially feasible, but the Eagles reportedly already plan to use the maximum of the two post-June 1 cuts on Darius Slay and James Bradbury. And so cutting Goedert doesn't really make sense either. I would just run it back with him. Have him play out the final year of his deal, maybe give him some guaranteed money. There's also this. If you sign him to a contract extension, you can open up some more cap space. And I don't think that contract extension is going to be crazy lofty, even though he's already a top 5 highest paid tight end in the NFL. As for Mekhi Becton, topic number 2, NFL insider Tony Pauline saying this, offensive lineman Mekhi Becton drawing a lot of interest, and he's told that teams are looking at Becton as a guard primarily, who can move to tackle if need be. The 2020 first-round pick of the Jets, late signing in free agency by the Eagles for about $3 million. What a deal. Then went on to have a sensational season, helping pave the way for Saquon Barkley. And Tony Pauline, I'm told the preference for Becton is to re-sign with the Eagles in free agency, as he's comfortable with the franchise that helped him reclaim his career. However, it's a matter of whether Philadelphia can fit him into the budget. May take a while for Becton to sign with the team, hence I don't see something happening immediately once free agency opens. Couple of thoughts here. Mekhi Becton clearly loved his time in Philadelphia. When they made it to the playoffs, he cried. When they won the Super Bowl, he was very emotional. And I asked him about that specifically in the lead up to the Super Bowl. He said, I hadn't been around a winning environment for a really long time. I believe he said since going all the way back to high school. And obviously he has a lot of respect for the offensive linemen in that room and Jeff Stoutland. So maybe that could lead to Becton taking a cheaper deal as compared to what he could get on the open market. But remember how players like Robert Hunt got $20 million per season on a 5-year, $100 million contract? There could be a team out in free agency like the Houston Texans, somebody else, that pays Becton a stupid amount of money that he just can't say no to. What if the Eagles offer him 10 to 14? Another team offers him 20. Is he willing to take that much less to stay with the Eagles? Sometimes the grass ain't always greener on the other side. I'd love to see Becton come back, but unlike Zach Bond, where there wasn't a replacement to replace him, putting pressure on the Eagles to bring him back, you have Tyler Steen waiting in the wings. And the Eagles always do a good job of drafting and developing offensive linemen, and they could do that at a fraction of the price, minimally, as compared to what Becton could get in free agency. All right, let's round out with this. What's going on with Darius Slay? I just want to see if he DM'd me back, because we exchanged a couple of DMs on X. So there's a clip going around on social media. And obviously Darius Slay has his podcast, and it's doing very well on YouTube. I think he's really good at it, and I think that he's going to continue to get better. I think that he could be really talented in the media industry once he decides to move on from his NFL career. He says that he wants to play one more year, but he's still playing really elite football, even though he's 34 years old. Still one of the top corners in the game. So there was one clip that started to go viral earlier this week of him talking about players who were next up in the Eagles secondary. And he said, I think Reed Blankenship can really lead that unit. He's the guy who I'm looking at. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. And then CJ Gardner-Johnson sent out kind of a cryptic tweet, and everybody thinks that that was in reference to Slay, not mentioning Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as one of the leaders to take over if Slay were to leave. And I got to say it, right? I mean, CJ Gardner-Johnson in the 2 years that he's been with the Eagles has been the heartbeat of that Eagles secondary. And I know that sometimes he can pop off in the media and he can pop off on social media, and the term that some people like to use these days is crash out. But as much as he can act in that manner and kind of go off the rails, he plays like that too. And the aggressive playing style, the tenacity, the physicality, having no fear, the intensity that he carries about him on and off the field. I've seen him off the field. He's just as intense. That's what makes him a great player. And so I think Darius Slay could have done a better job of mentioning Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as a player who could usher in the new era of this Eagles secondary if Darius Slay were to leave. And so I thought that was a little bit of a misstep on Darius Slay's part. Then there was a clip where he was asked about the top or the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. And he talked about Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Pretty sure he mentioned Patrick Mahomes. He didn't mention Jalen Hurts. And so I put out a tweet that Slay didn't mention Hurts as an elite quarterback. And so Slay said, I never said he wasn't elite. Watch the whole thing. And I think what people are maybe taking the wrong way is how Slay phrased it, right? He was asked who the elite quarterbacks are. He mentioned those quarterbacks. He didn't mention Jalen Hurts. And this is after Jalen Hurts won Super Bowl MVP and was fantastic and carved up the Washington Commanders in the NFC Championship game. And what really annoys me about Jalen Hurts and the talk around him, people will say, look at his numbers. My response to that, don't be a casual. Jalen Hurts accounted in the regular season for more than 30 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, right? And the Eagles in 2024, their identity was built behind the offensive line and running the football, and Saquon Barkley had the best year of any running back in the history of the game. Why would you go away from your strengths? You're supposed to lean on your strengths. And if the Eagles were to have gone away from their strengths and threw it and aired it out all the time, you'd be taking away from what Saquon Barkley was able to do, which was very special. And so I do think that Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback. I think he's an elite winner. I think he has some of the traits and intangibles and characteristics as a leader, as a player, that are required to be a championship level player. And so the talk on social media sometimes can get out of hand. And I get where Slay's kind of coming from here, where a lot of people are saying he can't come back. His tenure should be over. I thought that he could have done a better job with phrasing things a little bit differently, but I can also see where he's coming from. When he's asked about elite quarterbacks, he's probably thinking about quarterbacks on other teams, not the quarterback on his team, right? Because think about it. If you're on a team with somebody and somebody asks you, who are the elite quarterbacks in the NFL? You're probably thinking about some of the other quarterbacks who are not on your roster. And so maybe Slay's trying to clear that up. He messaged me, and I'm sure he's messaging some other people. He's always pretty visible on social media, and he could probably feel some of the tension that's going on. I know he's seen the tweets from CJ Gardner-Johnson. A.J. Brown sent out a couple of tweets saying, some of you guys on social media are unbearable. And yeah, sometimes this fan base can become a lot. But it does come down to the passion of this fan base, and this fan base does know ball. And maybe sometimes I can do a better job of phrasing things a little bit differently. But look, I have opinions, and I produce content, and I firmly stand behind my opinions and my analysis. And I told Darius Slay I thought he could have worded it a little bit better. So we'll see if he responds, and we'll see what comes of this. And we'll see if the Eagles bring him back, because players might be looking around the locker room saying, it's kind of weird what he's saying. He might have to clear some things up. And with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, my goodness, he's been the leader of that secondary alongside Darius Slay. And moving forward, I know that CD Deuce said very confident in some of the players in that room. All right, thanks for watching today's Philadelphia Eagles Now. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Crazy week here on Eagles Now. Exchanges with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Darius Slay on X. But hey, that's what happens.